There were false prophets among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the sovereign Lord who created them, bringing swift destruction upon themselves. Many will follow their depraved conduct and will bring the way of truth into disrepute. In their greed, these teachers will exploit you with fabricated stories. Their condemnation has long hung over them, and their destruction has not been dormant. 2 Peter 2, verses 1 through 3. This film consists of materials that were obtained as a result of many years of struggle with the religious mafia in the United States. Everything that you see and hear is just one of the many episodes of the parasitic existence of the gangster elite of the Bethany Church in Sacramento, California, USA, which is both inhuman and dangerous for American society. My name is Nikolai Feitzer, and I am pleased to welcome our investors and viewers who will watch this videotape. As a reference point, we will use this videotape. It was not easy to get this unique archived footage as it contains some serious evidence in today's time. The pastor of the Pentecostal Church, Bethany, Nikolai Feitzer, talks about the very beginning of the construction of the financial pyramid to deceive the saints naive enough to believe in them. It had so happened that last year we opened up 3 businesses. First, a surgical one. Then afterwards a clinic, and then an MRI. On this cassette, Nikolai Feitzer gives a tour of the surgical clinic. This was the first so-called fraud business. Please note, the clinic, according to Feitzer, had opened last year, but there are still no patients in it. There are no doctors. However, there is a manager who speaks eloquently and makes grand demonstrations. Let's stop at the room, which she calls the primary surgery room.
Things like that. We're going to have a flat screen, so everything will be back on here, and then we'll just push this in.
Yeah, it's placed for that.
Yeah, we're getting it, having it still installed. We've only been open.
Guests right from the street, in boots, without dressing gowns, masks, hats, or protective gear of any kind, are taken to where the most sterile place of the clinic should be. Nobody even washed their hands. Afterwards, the guests were entertained with the scalpels and shown to the doctor's office. As the manager remarked embarrassedly, this is a very modest office. Only a monitor is from the computer. And really, why does a doctor need a computer? Deception and turns had to be made quickly. Therefore, we decided to expand our business, not only towards California, but also in Boise, Idaho, and Seattle, Washington. Here begins the most obscure part of the scheme. Pfizer and the gang decided to play on MRI technology. Here, his accomplice, Peter Solodko, says, "People don't know what this stand-up MRI is. To some extent, this is a plus, not a minus." Naturally, he considers this a plus because future investors can tell any tale. In 2004, magnetic resonance imaging seemed like a miracle because just a year earlier, American chemist Paul Latterboer and British physicist Peter Mansfield received the Nobel Prize for developing this technology. Nikolai Feitzer did not show the operation of the stand-up MRI machine in an advertisement for his pyramid, but boasted that he had installed a new transformer for its operation. Now, look at the last moment when our brothers prayed and blessed our business. To bless the fraud, and later to actively participate in it, came 14 pastors from 3 states, California, Washington, and Oregon. Come in the work of our hands. May thy work be shown on thy servants, and thy glory be on their sons. The Lord said, on your sons. Well, where without the main person in Bethany, Adam Simeonovich Bondaruk, saying, on your sons, the false bishop acquired Piotr Solodko, and the cassette went to the hands of pastors. And those, in turn, took up the parishioners. The scheme is simple. Bring in money in this medical business, you receive dividends. They promised 10% of the installment. They didn't take less than $50,000. Lex Liberty employees traveled more than one state and got acquainted with the fate of the investors. In 2004, there was talk around the church that someone found money to help Russians invest money. And Feitzer, a pastor from Bethany, and Sergei Punka and Bondaruk, they all said, "We want to help the Russian people so that in our old age, we have some kind of extra money. To this end, we need to invest $50,000 into this company." All cases mentioned in this film are transferred to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and while the FBI is determining the pyramid participants, we are forced to change voices and hide some faces. People are afraid of physical violence for good reason. We list only 3 suspicious deaths. On December 4, 2011, the manager of the Bethany Church, Viktor Chernetsky, died from a hemorrhage in the brain. 5 days before, he suddenly lost consciousness immediately after the fraternal meeting and did not come to his senses. However, after the meeting, Viktor had to secretly pass church documents to the FBI, confirming the crimes of Adam Bondaruk's hand connected with the pyramid. On September 23, 2018, Ivan Fedyukov died in a car accident. The guard of the Bethany Church invested $150,000 in the pyramid scheme, and after the deceit, told everything to the journalists of the Sacramento Bee. The man who was not afraid to reveal the religious mafia was 73 years old. That is what remains of his car. Bruce Fred Friedman, a man who invested $80 million in the pyramid, suddenly died in prison. Moreover, it is worth noting this had also happened in Paris. Using the pastoral authority, the organizers of the pyramid went to the houses of the parishioners and knew exactly how much money could be squeezed out of whom. We gave $50,000 to Nikolai Feitzer 4 times, and he came to our house many more times, persuading, cajoling, speaking, but he did not tell the whole truth. When the truth surfaced, people certainly tried to get their money back, to no avail. The conditions for survival in the pyramid were brazenly set for them. Hand over your friends, and then you will leave yourself. I went to Nikolai Feitzer and asked, "Return the money to us." He refused us, said, "Bring people to your place, and there I will return it to you." An eloquent fact, isn't it? If Bondaruk, Feitzer, and all their accomplices in their indignity trampled upon God's laws, what is an old acquaintance to them? Their usual source of profit is brothers in Christ, and even more so, these criminals robbed friends whilst competing with each other. I met Nikolai Feitzer long before he suggested that I invest in MRI. I thought that it was connected with medicine and would be a good investment. I took a $350,000 mortgage out on my house and invested in this business. That is, people who believed in pastors brought them not only every last penny, but deceived investors also borrowed money from a bank. How to secure a considerable loan? Everything is simple. The pastor was prompted. In 2004, my husband and I took a house loan from the bank in the amount of $100,000 and invested this money into companies in 2006. And we were told that things were going wrong with these companies, which could even lead to bankruptcy. To prevent this from happening, these companies were merged into one with the name Consolidated Healthcare Services, LLC, and we had to sign the page of a new contract, which we did not see at the time we signed. Yes, people who were constantly under psychological pressure signed the contract blindly. Only then did they receive the document itself. The scheme, in which initially the first month someone really received payments, made it possible to draw in gullible Americans into it, as let's say it happened with Peter Trench. A relative of Bondaruk boasted that they already got it, and Peter himself asked for a pyramid, gladly brought $50,000.
My name is Peter Trench, and in 2005 or 6, I heard about this company, which was an MRI clinic, and I was told about it by a business associate of mine, and he had had relatives that had invested money in the company, and they were given, I think, 10% interest on the money that they invested with the company.
Then they did the same with the American, as with everyone else. Look at how thick the document is that he's about to sign. Recall, no one has certified translations. Can you read and understand 400 pages without a translator? Often the contract was completely empty.
My name is Tommy Bratkoff. I am making a statement on behalf of my father, Alexander Bratkoff, who has been involved in an investment scheme. This has happened in 2004, 2005. It's been a while back. This is the binder of the so-called investment with his name on here, with the potential clinic, so-called clinic. There's also a contract in here that is completely blank.
Nikolai Malamura. His late wife gave Bondaruk $50,000 as she dreamed of this as a way to pay for her children's education. I invested it in disbelief, and in the end, I realized that we were very beautifully and well circled and fooled. Now, 5 children are left in debt. Specifically, in this story, it is important that the wife of Nikolai, Nina Malamura, as a child, went to the church in which Adam Bondaruk was a pastor. It was in Estonian Kohtla-Järve, and the more difficult it was for investors, the easier it was for pyramid organizers. We are immigrants. We did not know English, and we came to a foreign country. We believed that he was our man, our church, a prominent person, being a pastor. Most importantly, I went through the entire hierarchy all the way to the pastors. Their families campaigned, did what they wanted, and people believed him because he was a pastor. This woman's name is Nadija Rasputnyuk. She is the mother of 5 children and the wife of the pastor of the Bethany Church. Their family brought $200,000 to the pyramid. When the doctors diagnosed Nadija with cancer, she urgently needed money, but no one from the top of the religious mafia would help the family of her pastor. Eventually, everyone found out that the organizers had returned their investments a long time ago. Completely. Naturally, it had come from the money of the investors. Why did Bondaruk and his sister return their money, and even more than that? Adam Bondaruk joyfully ran his hands into the pockets of representatives of other religious faiths. Here is the word of the Baptist pastor. Adam Bondaruk lived next to me, not so far. One might say about 400 meters. Practically neighbors, and when I visited them, his wife Galina said, "We also invested money. We have invested $150,000. I think it will be interesting to you." I say, of course, if that makes sense, then I'm also ready to sacrifice and try to have some kind of support in the future. And I believed, because if Bondaruk agreed, if fates are so authoritatively stated then, what to me? These people are familiar. If we show everyone who has spoken with us, then this film would drag on for more than a day. The Slavic families alone numbered more than 200. Many have already died before justice, have lost the house under which they took a loan, and are now forced to pay interest. Here is perhaps the most striking such case. Paul Kishlanka brought criminals more than $3 million. He took the money, as advised by the bank, under his 7 houses which he rented out. As a result, they were all confiscated for non-payment. Now Paul, who is 77 years old, lives in a rented apartment and works at a construction site. Thus, the American banking system was damaged because the homes to be sold at a lower cost. We hope that by this moment you have an understanding. The religious mafia did not reckon with anyone, including robbing the elderly, who, according to our American laws, are considered particularly vulnerable adult. If one of them did try to find justice, he would only receive threats in response. That is how it has always been in the Church of Bondaruk. Fast forward to the 90s. This person's name is Vladimir Vorontsov. Now he speaks with difficulty, but at one time he played an active role in the Fraternal Council of Bethany. Moreover, he helped Bondaruk with the money. He gave a considerable amount of money for the so-called storage. When he tried to return them and wrote a letter to the owner of Bethany, he received a threat in return. I want to remind you that the check will also reveal your considerable funds that you invested in the church for preservation, having hidden it from the welfare and the SSI. This is not in your best interests, and the consequences for you can be completely unpredictable. Bondaruk began to take his revenge and destroyed the family of Vladimir Vronstal. Such is the cost to now look at the top of Bethany with open eyes. Bondaruk had once declared at a fraternal meeting that the church is his business. The church became his business, and it is not surprising that he should begin to make money through the church in various ways. Then, in the late 90s, a false bishop, Adam Bondaruk, met with a retired military officer, Albert Wilson, who owned the building of the sports complex of the deserted Air Force Base. He sells the building to the false bishop, which, in time, will become the Bondaruk Almshouse that will turn into a real factory of deceit that tramples on all laws, biblical, American, and universal. We speak with the owner of the sports complex, Al Wilson, and we hold the sports complex as the first miracle. Al Wilson is the second miracle, an amazing person. The man is truly amazing. First, Albert Wilson is an officer. Secondly, a pensioner. And thirdly, an angelically trusting person who believed he was doing a good deed. He turned the neglected building into a house of prayer meeting for internally displaced persons. Albert Wilson acted as a lender because the bank would not approve an amount of $5,425,000 to the refugee immigrant community. How did Adam Bondaruk respond to such kindness? Of course, it was a hoax. The false bishop suggested that Wilson not pay by installments. The officer brought the remaining money and a check in the amount of $1,200,000. After signing the transfer of ownership, Adam Bondaruk and Nikolai Feitzer immediately suggested that Albert Wilson invest the money he had just brought into the church, medical clinic, and MRI units. This is a familiar pattern to us. They promised 12% per annum, and Albert Wilson succumbed. $2 million returned to the scammers. Moreover, Wilson's daughter gave $1 million to the pyramid scheme. Needless to say, the Wilsons did not see their money return. Thus, the territory of the Slavic Missionary Church, Bethany, was stolen from Albert Wilson. The Chief Master Sergeant, who has been repaying his debt to America, has served in hot spots all around the world, from Vietnam to Germany. His wife, daughter, and son have died, so he has nothing left to lose today. He was left alone, and now it is time for society to defend the American hero. Veterans must be defended. The pyramid organizers not only returned their money, which they invested to divert eyes along with parishioners, but many pastors received bonuses for their diligence. Adam Bondaruk himself also took 20% from each person involved in the pyramid. The greed of these people have no limits. Investors' money was withdrawn from medical offices to the construction company Feitzer Construction by Nikolai Feitzer. This is the so-called gasket, a company that allows you to money laundering. Feitzer Construction won all tenders for repairs in the building of the Bethany Church. Over the past 17 years, there have been at least 25 such competitions. The cost of each of them was certainly overstated, and the total amounted to almost $4 million amount. And Nikolai Feitzer built or reconstructed houses, transferred them for Adam Bondaruk, his wife and children. Well, Bondaruk himself sold them. Then, in Sacramento County alone, Bondaruk's family accounts for 286 real estate transactions. Adam Bondaruk, 52. Pavel Bondaruk, 46. Veniamin Bondaruk, 39. Peter Bondaruk, 25 transactions. At the same time, Peter Bondaruk was sentenced to 6 years for fraud and money laundering in real estate. Now to the affairs of Nikolai Feitzer. In Sacramento County, his family accounts for 1,338 real estate transactions. For the youngest son of Feitzer, Paul, 460 transactions. Pay attention to the left column. The year and the number of the documents indicate 2005 and 2006 as the richest in transactions. But these are the very years when defrauded investors massively gave money to MRI. The money of deceived old people and gullible parishioners migrated to the family Mafia clans of Bondaruk, Feitzer, and Soldotko. They did not become someone else's pension or payment for treatment or study. They became luxury cars, luxury real estate, yachts. Let's look at the youngest son of Nikolai Feitzer, Pavel. It features a surgical center from which our film began when Bondaruk raised his hands and said prayers to his god, Mammon, the same medical center which never saw a single day of work and was hastily put together to create a pyramid. As the investigation continued, the evidence against the gang of honorable criminals was deliberately set on fire, and after 6 days, Nikolai Feitzer himself died. This happened at the end of 2019, and while the fictitious medical business was burning, its beneficiary, Adam Semyonovich Bondaruk, tried very hard to part ways with the New Life Church. Lex Liberty talked about this in previous episodes. Having seized millions of church donations in his church, false Bishop Bondaruk passionately wanted to take away the parish from Pastor Vasily Nikitovich Vakulsky. The truth, which has managed to be conveyed to people through our investigations, was helped by the New Life Church. The truth turned out to be stronger than the entire Fraternal Council, who, on the orders of Bondaruk, went to war against his own pastor Vakulsky. Having lost the parishioners, he was almost forced to fight alone with the raiders in a red-hot iron to burn out the traitors. The situation is oppressive, but who started it? Our brothers brought, with the help of Komich, Bondaruk, with the help of Grinko Alexander and Kirill, Peter Opanasiuk, Leonid Pakyuk, brought this terrible spiritual virus to the church. By the decision of the brothers Alexander Grinko, Kirill Grinko, Peter Opanasiuk, and Leonid Pakyuk, for which they were warned, put to consecration, but they did not stop. They continued their work, processed people, set up against the shepherd, youth and youth choirs.
Но они не остановились, продолжают свою работу. Обрабатывать людей, настраивать против пастора, молодежь, молодежный хор.
Therefore, the brothers made a decision on the basis of Holy Scripture. These brothers who conceived this work in the church, who called, did not stop, to finally remove their ministry and excommunicate in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Снять окончательно с них служение и отлучить от церкви. Во имя Господа Иисуса Христа.
And this spiritual virus, which was introduced to the Vakulsky church by Bondaruk, became a completely material virus.
The church's senior pastor is hospitalized with the virus.
Yes, Adam Semyonovich Bondaruk was infected with coronavirus. The same fate befell his wife Galina and son Paul. There, hundreds of parishioners and 10 Bethany functionaries went to bed, who, according to Dr. Peter Bylinson, director of the Sacramento County Health Services, continued their meetings outside the church building. Bethany has become America's largest ecclesiastical outbreak in America. Well, in conclusion, a brief reference. Bondaruk Adam Semyonovich. Born in Ukraine in a family of Pentecostal believers, he has always been two-faced. From his youth, he actively collaborated with the KGB. When children of believers were not allowed to study, he graduated from high school with a gold medal. In 1961, in the city of Kryvyi Rog, he was witness of the prosecution when presbyters and deacons were tried for religious activities under Article 209 of the Ukrainian Code of Criminal Procedure. Adam Bondaruk gave such testimonies that were against the leaders of the church. Then everyone received a camp term, and 2 years later, in a strange way, Adam Bondaruk was promoted to the rank of presbyter. Became a church served in the formidable 60s. In September 20, 1961, the trial started of 10 brothers from 3 churches of Kryvyi Rog. About 153 Christian witnesses were interrogated. They tried to take some charges, and I ended up in court. In the 70s, when the Pentecostal struggle for religious freedom began in the USSR, Bondaruk not only approved the persecution of believers, but also, using the support of the KGB, put pressure on them. Excommunicated, forced to write letters to the authorities. But as soon as with American support, Soviet Pentecostals achieved the opportunity to emigrate, Bondaruk immediately fled. He deceived the immigration service because he himself had never been prosecuted. In addition, he hid the criminal prosecution of Peter, his son. In America, Bondaruk cunningly led those whom he pursued and betrayed. We have already talked about this in passing. I appeal to you people, is it really such a Christianity that has lost its mind? This Kotyakov, a hoaxer, and in simple terms, faggot. Here in Sacramento, Bondaruk condoned him. He provided him with a place in the meeting where he campaigned so that they would come to Kotyakov. People, brothers, sober up. Look who ordained you, and what result? For the day of vengeance is with the Lord, the year of retribution for Zion. And his rivers shall turn to tar, and his dust into sulfur, and his land shall be hot tar, will not go out day or night. Her smoke will always rise, will remain desolate from generation to generation. Forever and ever no one will pass through it, and the pelican and the hedgehog will take possession of it, and an eagle owl and a raven dwell in it, and the verbs of ruin and the plumb line of destruction will be stretched along it. No one will remain there from her nobles who can be called to the kingdom, and all her princes will be nothing, and its palaces will be overgrown with prickly plants, nettles and burdocks, its strongholds, and it will be the dwelling of jackals, the shelter of ostriches. And the beasts of the desert will meet with wild cats, and the goblin will echo one with the other. There the night ghost will rest and find peace. A flying serpent nests there, will lay eggs and bring out children and gather them under its shadow. There the kites will gather one to another. Isaiah 34, chapter 8, verse 15.